So unfortunately my ScreenFlow program, which is now recording my drawing, excuse me, actually crashed the computer. So I did have this from Sketch, and so sadly now it's only from halfway through the painting. So I will explain as best I can what is going on whilst it happens. At the moment you can see I'm adding highlights to the eye. It's just lots and lots of little bits of rendering now. To explain what I did with the overall texture, I dragged in a texture using a multiply layer and had that quite low opacity, so when I started the picture it was has that kind of grainy effect which you can see there, and that just takes away the horror of working on a bright white canvas, which some of you might have. No, I don't like it, so I nearly always start on a coloured background, whether that be grey or, in this case, I did with the kind of orangey colour that I started with. Based on you can see the pictures of the octopuses on the left. You've got that kind of knobbly headed octopus at the bottom right of the reference, and he is responsible for the knobbly head of my Cthulu. So I used that and I dragged that over, stretched it and warped it, and made it a bit less opaque than it was, and then painted over it some more and added some more textures over the top of that. So that's something I really enjoy doing, is bringing in textures from things. It doesn't even have to be from an octopus, but in this case I thought it was kind of appropriate, so I did that. And you'll also notice he's kind of got kind of a human, well, I say human mouth, it is a human mouth because I've got the reference there, but kind of a mouth that possibly needs a bit of emergency dentistry. But I thought it'd be kind of nice, instead of have the octopus beak, to have a creepy little sort of gummy human mouth in there. Might be a bit more gross. So that's why he's there. That little gummy smile. Don't be afraid to use lots and lots of reference. I always use reference. Sometimes I'll start painting before getting the reference out, which I actually did with this one. I just started the idea I wanted him to be in this sort of thin format canvas, and just a heap of tentacles coming at you. And just play with ideas. You can always bring in, take things away after. That's the joy of the lovely, lovely digital painting, is that you can edit it very heavily and completely undo it. So you can try new things out on a new layer if you're not sure whether your idea is going to work. It's good to be able to have a new layer. So that's what I do if I'm thinking of adding something. But like, to start with, he didn't have 3 eyes on the left. He only had one little black one, and then I thought, oh, why not have 3 eyes? You know, he's a god. He can do whatever he wants and have as many eyes as he wants. You could add more eyes if you wanted, but the right-hand eye, or at least our right-hand eye, I've made it more kind of weird, octopusy, sea creature-y kind of shaped eye. You could make it a funny colour if you wanted. I could have made it yellow. Pretty much anything you want when you go to the fantasy and horror side of things, which is kind of fun. I do excuse my voice, but I've had a pretty horrible cold, so it's a bit growly today. So yeah, just getting those little shiny details on the gums. If you can pinpoint bits of light here and there, it really makes something pop out and feel a bit more real. So as you can see, I'm using a multiply layer there, so I've just picked a medium kind of pink, or orangey pink in this case, and I just add that to the shadows, and it's just really an easy way of playing around with things without ruining the whole picture. I'm just constantly, I always have the little zoomed out picture of what I'm working on the bottom right there, so that I can see what it looks like all the time zoomed out. It's a really great technique which I was taught by Bobby Chu of Imaginism Studios. Very, very helpful. So you can always see it, what it looks like zoomed out, because if it looks rubbish zoomed out, it generally is going to look rubbish zoomed in. So if it looks strong in the shapes and the kind of feel when it's in the small version, then you can be confident in all the little details you're doing without constantly having to zoom it out all the time. So I'm just adding little tentacles here and there, and I probably could have gone a bit more crazy with tentacles, but there is a time limit. They are very time consuming, tentacles, I do warn you. So I did snakes on the Medusa. That takes a long time, but it's worth it. It's worth taking the time because it looks really great at the end. So other things you could do is to inspire you for drawing your Cthulhu is look up lots of other different creatures. It doesn't have to be octopuses, or octopi, probably octopi, I don't know. So just search around for weird stuff, go on Google, look up weird creature or weird sea creature, anything like that, and you'll come up with some really strange, usually deep sea creature type things that might pique your imagination, get you scribbling. So at the moment I'm trying to get rid of all the sketch lines. There's just one way of doing it. Another way is to not even is to do the painting on top of the sketch on a new layer, which I didn't do in this case because I don't normally do that. And sometimes I don't even do a sketch. Sometimes I go straight into sort of blocking up shapes. But using the little blur tool is very, very handy. So I use the blur tool on 100%. Sample all layers in the top left there, and just at the moment it looks really, really messy, but we'll neaten that up later. So even though I'm doing these little details, I'm constantly, when I'm drawing, looking at the entire picture and thinking, oh, do I need to add more shadow there? Does that bit of tentacle go in the right direction, or at least in the direction I think I want it to go? And so on. You're just always comparing everything to everything else to see if it works best. And like I said in the tutorial, that don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't worry about it looking weird. Sometimes it can look really awful for a long time until you kind of go over break the back of it and get past the fiddly bits, and then it starts really coming together. I'm just putting the little suctions on there. Obviously I don't draw this fast, this is sped up by about 600%, so everything you see here is done in the space of about 3 hours, I think. Something like that. So this one I spent quite a long time on the drawing. I wanted that to be quite strong before I started painting. Not something I always do, but it definitely pays off to get the basics down. So the brush that I'm using on this one is a new brush that I downloaded, but it's basically, it's no different to the hard round brush. You could use a hard round brush for this. It's a hexagonal brush, and its strength is about, I think it's 100% at the moment, but oh, hang on, I'm on smudge brush again. But yeah, the hexagonal brush, it's just like the hard round but hexagonal shape, and I'm using that to paint this time. I've never used it before, just thought I'd try something different. And you can play around with the brush presets and things and make it do what you want. You can play around with it and add texture to it if you want. There's a texture brush I've got that I've used a couple of times on this as well. On some of the tentacles if they're looking a bit too flat. Obviously, a painting like this, I could probably spend about another 3 days on it, making it really, really detailed. Yeah, once you finish Cthulu, you won't want to do another tentacle for a while. I think he looks quite friendly, actually. Originally, I was going to make him have a cigar in his mouth, but that's only because whoever asked the question of painting a cool Cthulhu, I was like, oh, maybe he's like Hannibal off the A-Team and he has a cigar. And he thinks he's a bit cool. But then I thought, nah, I'm going to do a creepy one. But he still looks like he's kind of smiling. Albeit in anticipation to bring on your doom. So all the time when I'm doing the light and shade, I'm always thinking about where is my light source. So the light source is almost, it's kind of, without pointing at it, which you wouldn't see, it's coming from the top and slightly in front of him. So the light source really helps describe the tentacles and make them look like 3D things. You've always got to think of them as this 3D object in a 2D space. So now I'm trying to get to the end of it. Just tweaking little bits here and there, adding tentacles or suction cups rather. Sometimes it's good to keep zoomed out because you can get so obsessed with the detail that it's things that won't even be seen when someone's looking at the overall image. So also another good tip is to, if you've been painting for a long time, sort of leave it for a couple of hours, go out and do something else, or leave it overnight and then go back to it, and you'll be able to see all the things that you don't like about it and do like about it. But usually it's the things you don't like and you want to change, so you can see them a lot clearer. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint. And I hope you enjoy the tutorial.